Commander Zexhai had seen enough battlefields to know when something was wrong. The smoking wreckage of 3 Vorthon battle cruisers drifted silently through space, their hulls torn open like discarded fruit peels. Each ship had carried over 2,000 of the galaxy's most feared warriors, yet they had been destroyed in less than 10 minutes. Survivors? Zexhai asked, his 4 eyes scanning the tactical display aboard his command vessel. 17, sir, replied his communications officer, her voice trembling. They keep repeating the same thing over and over. The main screen flickered to life, showing a badly injured Vorthon soldier. His usually pristine armor was scorched black, and one of his secondary arms hung useless at his side. When he spoke, his voice cracked with terror. They came from nowhere, the survivor whispered. No warning, no demands, no communication. Just death. The humans. They called them elite units. Zexhai felt his blood chill. For 300 years, the Galactic Council had maintained careful diplomatic relations with the human territories. Humans were known to be resourceful and surprisingly stubborn for such a young species. But they had always been reasonable. They traded fairly, honored their agreements, and generally kept to themselves in their small corner of the galaxy. What did the Vorthons do to provoke this attack? Zexhai demanded. The injured soldier's eyes widened. Nothing different than usual, sir. We were conducting standard raids on the outer rim planets, small human colonies barely defended. We've been doing it for decades. They never fought back like this before. Standard raids. Zexhai knew what that meant. The Vorthons had been slavers for centuries, taking what they wanted from weaker species. The humans had been complaining about these raids for years, but their protests had been largely ignored by the Council. After all, what could one small species do against the might of the Vorthon Empire? Apparently quite a lot. Sir, his tactical officer interrupted, we're receiving a transmission from human space. It's being broadcast on all frequencies in every known galactic language. Put it through. The screen changed to show a human female in military uniform. She appeared calm, almost casual as she spoke. Attention all species of the Galactic Council. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Force. For too long we have watched as Vorthon raiders have attacked our outer colonies, stealing our people and destroying our homes. We have filed formal complaints, requested intervention, and pleaded for justice. All have been ignored. Admiral Chen paused, and Zexhai noticed something unsettling in her eyes. It wasn't anger or hatred. It was the cold, calculated look of someone who had made a difficult decision and would see it through to the end. Therefore, we are implementing new defensive measures. Any Vorthon vessel found within human space or attacking human colonies will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. We have deployed what we call elite units throughout our territory. These units have one purpose: to ensure that no human life is taken without consequence. The transmission ended, leaving Zexhai's bridge in uncomfortable silence. His crew exchanged worried glances. They had all heard stories about human military capabilities, but most dismissed them as exaggerations. Humans were young, their technology primitive compared to species that had been spacefaring for millennia. Sir, his science officer spoke up. I've completed my analysis of the Vorthon wreckage. The weapon signatures are unusual. Explain. The damage patterns suggest a combination of technologies we've never seen used together. Plasma weaponry, but more focused than anything in our databases. Kinetic impactors moving at velocities that should be impossible to achieve in normal space. And something else, sir. Something that seems to have disrupted their shields at the molecular level. Zexhai studied the data streaming across his screens. The Vorthon ships hadn't just been destroyed. They had been systematically dismantled by weapons that seemed to ignore conventional defensive measures. Whatever these elite units were, they represented a significant advancement in human military technology. Communications. Get me a direct line to the Human Defense Force. I want to speak with this Admiral Chen. Sir, we're receiving multiple distress signals from across the sector. All Vorthon vessels. Zexhai's heart sank. If the humans had deployed these elite units throughout their territory, and if they were as effective as the evidence suggested, then the balance of power in this region had just shifted dramatically. The communication came through surprisingly quickly. Admiral Chen appeared on screen again, this time seated in what looked like a standard military office. She seemed almost amused by the call. Commander Zexhai, she said, apparently recognizing him. I assume you're calling about the recent incidents. Admiral, what you've done today will be seen as an act of war by the Vorthon Empire. They have allies throughout the galaxy. Commander, what we've done today is defend our people, something we should have been able to rely on the Galactic Council to help us with. Her tone remained pleasant, but there was steel underneath. As for the Vorthan Empire and their allies, they're welcome to test our resolve. You don't understand the forces you're provoking. The Vorthons alone command a fleet of over 10,000 warships. Admiral Chen smiled, and Zexai found it more frightening than any threat he'd ever heard. Commander, we've been preparing for this day for 50 years. Every raid, every stolen colonist, every ignored plea for help has been carefully documented and planned for. Our elite units aren't just weapons. They're the culmination of human ingenuity, determination, and righteous anger. What exactly are these elite units? I think it's better if you discover that for yourself. But I will tell you this, Commander. For 3 centuries, the galaxy has underestimated humanity. They've seen us as weak, primitive, barely worth notice. That ends today. The Vorthons wanted to test human resolve. How they'll learn what that really means. The transmission ended, leaving Zexai staring at a blank screen. Around him, his crew worked frantically to process the incoming reports. Vorthan fleets across 3 sectors were under attack. Ships that had dominated space lanes for centuries were being destroyed by an enemy they couldn't even properly identify. As he watched the tactical displays update with each new battle report, Zexai realized that everything was about to change. The humans had been content to remain in the shadows of galactic politics, but now they were stepping into the light. And they were bringing weapons that made the galaxy's traditional powers look like children with toys. The age of human weakness was over. The age of elite units had begun. Captain Morgeth of the Vorthan Imperial Navy had conquered 17 star systems and enslaved millions. His flagship, the Crimson Talon, was a testament to Vorthan engineering and cruelty. Armed with weapons that could crack planets and carrying enough troops to subjugate entire worlds, it was considered one of the most powerful vessels in the galaxy. Now it drifted helplessly in space, its engines dead and its weapons offline. Report, Morgeth growled, his massive frame hunched over the command console. Around him, smoke filled the bridge as his crew scrambled to repair damaged systems. Sir, we've lost main power, backup power is failing, and our weapons are completely inoperative. His tactical officer reported, trying to keep the fear out of his voice. Whatever hit us, it bypassed our shields entirely. Morgeth had been hunting human colonies for 40 years. It was easy work, profitable and entertaining. Humans were soft, emotional creatures who valued individual lives over strategic thinking. They would surrender entire settlements to save a handful of children. It made them perfect prey, but this had been different. The attack had come without warning. One moment, the Crimson Talon had been approaching a small human mining colony, ready to take whatever resources and slaves they could find. The next moment, something had materialized directly in front of them. Morgeth had commanded fleets long enough to recognize most ship types at a glance, but the vessel that appeared before them was unlike anything in his databases. It was smaller than his flagship, perhaps a third the size, but its design was elegant and predatory. Where Vorthon ships were built for intimidation, with aggressive angles and threatening protrusions, this human vessel seemed almost organic in its curves. Incoming transmission. Sir, his communications officer announced. From the humans? No, sir. From that ship. The main screen activated, showing a figure that made every Vorthan on the bridge step backward. It appeared human at first glance, but something was fundamentally wrong. The being stood nearly 7 feet tall, its body encased in armor that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Where a human face should have been, there was only a smooth, reflective surface that somehow conveyed more menace than any expression could. When it spoke, its voice was distinctly human, but layered with harmonics that made it sound like multiple people speaking in perfect unison. Vorthan vessel Crimson Talon, you are guilty of crimes against humanity. Your attacks on our colonies end today. Morgeth found his voice. I am Captain Morgeth of the Imperial Navy. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences. The figure tilted its head slightly. We are Elite Unit Designation Hunter 7. We do not surrender. We do not negotiate. We eliminate threats to humanity. Before Morgeth could respond, every system on his ship began failing simultaneously. It wasn't like conventional weapons fire or electromagnetic interference. His equipment simply stopped working, as if something was rewriting the fundamental laws of physics around his vessel. Sir, his science officer called out in panic. The molecular bonds in our hull are destabilizing. Whatever they're doing, it's breaking down the atomic structure of our ship. Through the viewports, Morgoth could see other Vorthon vessels in his fleet suffering the same fate. Ships that had dominated the galaxy for centuries were being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to exist outside the normal rules of warfare. "How many of you are there?" Morgoth demanded, trying to understand what he was facing. "We are Legion," Hunter 7 replied. "We are the answer to every human prayer for protection. We are the consequence of every human death you have caused." Morgoth realized with growing horror that the being wasn't speaking metaphorically. Something in its tone suggested that these elite units had been created not just as weapons, but as expressions of human will itself. "What do you want?" he asked. "Justice. Retribution. The end of Vorthon aggression against humanity." Hunter 7 paused, and somehow Morgoth could feel its attention focusing on him like a physical weight. "You have personally been responsible for the deaths of 12,000 humans across 17 raids. You have taken 8,000 humans as slaves. You have destroyed 47 colonies." The precision of the numbers was terrifying. These creatures knew exactly what each Vorthon had done, as if they had been watching and recording every crime for decades. "Your crew will be spared if they surrender immediately," Hunter 7 continued. "You will not." "Wait," Morgoth said, desperation creeping into his voice. "The Galactic Council has laws, treaties. You can't simply execute prisoners. The Galactic Council failed to protect human lives. We are not bound by their laws." The elite unit stepped closer to the screen, and Morgoth could see his own reflection in its featureless face. "You mistake us for something we are not, Captain. We are not soldiers bound by conventions of war. We are not politicians concerned with diplomacy. We are human, will made manifest, and that will demands justice for our dead." Around the bridge, Morgoth's crew was already beginning to surrender. They could see the writing on the wall. Their mighty flagship was helpless before this single enemy vessel, and their captain was marked for death. "Sir," his first officer whispered, "perhaps we should consider their terms." Morgoth snarled at his subordinate, but he knew the truth. For the first time in his military career, he was completely outmatched. These elite units represented something unprecedented in galactic warfare. They weren't just technologically superior. They were operating by entirely different rules. "You created us," Hunter 7 said, as if reading his thoughts. "Every human child you killed, every colony you destroyed, every life you stole added to our purpose. We are the accumulated will of humanity, shaped by your cruelty into something that can finally protect our people." "That's impossible," Morgoth protested. "No species can simply will beings into existence, can't they?" Hunter 7 asked. "Humans have always been different, Captain. We don't just build tools. We pour our essence into them. Every human weapon carries a piece of the warrior who wields it. Every human ship contains the dreams of those who built it. You forced us to focus that essence, to distill our protective instincts into something that could stand against the darkness." The elite unit raised one hand, and Morgoth felt something fundamental change in the space around him. The air itself seemed to thicken with intent and purpose. "Your crew has 30 seconds to evacuate to escape pods," Hunter 7 announced. "After that, this vessel and its captain will be eliminated." Morgoth watched in disbelief as his soldiers, warriors who had never shown fear in battle, rushed for the escape pods. They could sense something that his rational mind refused to accept. These elite units weren't just advanced technology. They were something deeper, more primal. They were human determination given form and substance. As the last of his crew fled, Morgoth found himself alone on his bridge, facing an enemy that represented everything he had never understood about humanity. They weren't weak. They had been restrained, held back by their own morality and hope for peaceful coexistence. Now that restraint was gone, and the galaxy was about to learn what humanity was truly capable of when pushed beyond endurance. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from 47 species crowded into the great chamber, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, growls, telepathic whispers, and electronic harmonics. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Kralvex of the Vorthon Empire, his normally imposing presence diminished by the reports flooding in from across Vorthon space. "In the past 72 hours," Kralvex announced, his voice echoing through the chamber's translation systems. We have lost over 300 vessels to these human elite units, not destroyed in honorable combat, but systematically eliminated by entities that appear to exist outside conventional reality. Chancellor Thyros, the ancient leader of the council, gestured for calm with his multiple appendages. Ambassador, you speak of entities as if these are not simply advanced human military units. Surely your intelligence services have gathered information about their capabilities. That's just it, Chancellor, Kralvex replied, his tone heavy with frustration. We can't gather intelligence on them. Our sensors detect them as human but also as something else entirely. They phase in and out of normal space at will. They can disable our most advanced technology with what appears to be focused intention alone. From across the chamber, Ambassador Jetka of the crystalline Nexari species chimed in with musical tones that translated as, "Perhaps the Vorthons are simply encountering human technology they don't understand. Their military has become complacent after centuries of easy victories against primitive worlds." The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Several species nodded in agreement, their representatives remembering their own encounters with Vorthon aggression over the centuries. You think this is about technology? Kralvex's voice rose dangerously. I'll show you what we're facing. The chamber's main display activated, showing sensor footage from one of the destroyed Vorthon vessels. The recording was grainy and filled with static, but it clearly showed a sleek human ship materializing in the middle of a Vorthon battle formation. What happened next defied explanation. The human vessel didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, streams of energy that looked almost alive reached out and touched each Vorthon ship. Where the energy made contact, the massive warships simply began to dissolve, their molecular structure unraveling like fabric being pulled apart thread by thread. This is impossible, whispered Dr. Murthai, the Council's chief scientific advisor. Matter cannot be dissolved at the atomic level without massive energy expenditure. The readings show no such energy signatures. Exactly, Kralvex said grimly. These elite units operate by principles we don't understand. They're not just using advanced technology. They're rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in localized areas. Chancellor Thyros leaned forward, his ancient eyes studying the footage. Have you attempted to communicate with them? To understand their demands? We tried. The response was always the same. They identify themselves by designation numbers, state that they are instruments of human justice, and then proceed to eliminate any Vorthon presence in the area. They don't negotiate, don't take prisoners, and show no mercy. Ambassador Linseth of the Peaceful Meridian Collective spoke up, her soft voice carrying through the chamber's acoustics. What exactly did the Vorthons do to provoke this response? The humans have been remarkably restrained throughout their history with us. Kralvex's hesitation spoke volumes. The chamber fell silent as representatives waited for his answer. We conducted standard resource acquisition operations in human territory, he finally admitted. Standard operations? Linseth pressed. Please clarify for the Council. Raids, Kralvex said through gritted teeth. We raided human colonies for resources and labor, as we have done for decades without significant resistance. The chamber erupted in a chaos of responses. Many species had suffered under Vorthon resource acquisition over the centuries, but none had been able to mount effective resistance. The revelation that humans had not only resisted, but had done so with devastating effectiveness sent ripples of shock and, in some cases, satisfaction through the assembly. How many raids? Chancellor Thyros demanded, his voice cutting through the noise. Approximately 437 operations over the past 50 years. The number fell like a stone into still water. 437 raids meant thousands of human lives lost or enslaved. Entire communities destroyed. Families torn apart. For a species known for their emotional bonds and protective instincts, such losses would have been devastating. And the humans filed formal complaints about these raids? Linseth asked, multiple times. Their diplomatic corps requested intervention, compensation, and protection. All requests were deferred. Dr. Murthai activated his personal analysis device, streams of data flowing across its surface. If I may, Chancellor, I'd like to share some research my team has compiled about human neurological and social development. Proceed. Doctor. Humans are unique among known species in their capacity for what they call righteous anger. When they perceive injustice, particularly against their own kind, they can focus their emotional and intellectual resources in ways that transcend normal limitations. Their history is filled with examples of individuals performing impossible feats when driven by the need to protect others. The chamber listened intently as Dr. Murthy continued. What we're seeing with these elite units appears to be a technological manifestation of this trait. Humans have somehow channeled their collective will into these entities, creating something that exists at the intersection of technology and pure intention. That's preposterous, Kralvex objected. No species can simply will weapons into existence, can't they? Dr. Murthy asked mildly. Human technology has always been different from ours. Where we build tools, they create extensions of themselves. Their computers think like human minds because they're designed to mirror human thought patterns. Their weapons hit targets because they carry the shooter's intent. What if they've simply taken this concept to its logical extreme? Chancellor Thyros studied the data streaming across his personal display. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy as word of the elite unit spread. Some species were expressing concern about this new human capability, but others were openly celebrating the end of Vorthon impunity. Ambassador Kralvex, the Chancellor said finally, what response is your government planning? We demand that the Council intervene. These elite units represent a threat to galactic stability. If the humans are allowed to deploy such weapons without consequence, it will upset the balance of power that has maintained peace for centuries. The irony of a Vorthon ambassador, speaking about peace and stability, was not lost on the assembly. Several representatives made sounds that their translators interpreted as bitter laughter. The balance you speak of, Linseth observed, was maintained by fear of Vorthon retaliation. Perhaps true balance requires that all species have the ability to defend themselves effectively. You're suggesting we allow this escalation to continue? Kralvex demanded. I'm suggesting, Linseth replied calmly, that the humans have done what we all wished we could do. They found a way to make aggression too costly to pursue. Chancellor Thyros raised his appendages for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke with the authority of 1,000 years of galactic governance. The Council will not intervene against human defensive actions. For too long we have allowed the strong to prey upon the weak because it was easier than confronting difficult truths. The humans have shown us that there is another way. Kralvex's shock was visible even through his species' normally stoic demeanor. You're abandoning us to these monsters. We're recognizing that sometimes monsters are necessary to stop greater monsters, the Chancellor replied. The age of unchecked aggression is over. The humans have seen to that. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent 15 years studying xenopsychology, but nothing in her education had prepared her for interviewing an elite unit. The being that sat across from her in the secure facility on Luna Station defied every category she understood. It appeared human in basic structure, but something fundamental was different. Its presence filled the room with an almost tangible sense of purpose that made her instruments behave erratically. Thank you for agreeing to this interview, she began, trying to keep her voice steady. For the record, please state your designation. We are Elite Unit Designation Guardian 12, the being replied. Its voice was distinctly human, but carried harmonics that suggested multiple speakers. We exist to protect humanity from external threats. When you say we, are you referring to yourself in the plural, or to your collective consciousness with other elite units? Guardian 12 considered the question for a moment. Both. We are individual, but we are also part of something larger. Every elite unit shares the same core purpose, drawn from the same source of human will and determination. Dr. Vasquez made notes on her tablet, though she suspected that any record of this conversation would be incomplete. The being across from her existed at the intersection of technology and something she couldn't quite define. Can you explain how you came to exist? Our scientists are struggling to understand the process. We are born from necessity, Guardian 12 replied. For 50 years, humanity endured attacks on our colonies. Each death, each family destroyed, each child taken, added to a growing reservoir of protective instinct. Your species channeled this collective will through advanced neural interfaces and quantum manipulation technology. So, you're saying that human emotion and determination have been somehow made manifest in physical form? Not emotion, purpose. Humans have always possessed the ability to focus their will into extraordinary achievements. We are simply the culmination of that process, shaped by the specific need to defend against those who would harm humanity. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward, fascinated despite her unease. Are you conscious? Do you experience thoughts and feelings the way humans do? Guardian 12's head tilted slightly, and she had the distinct impression it was amused by the question. We experience purpose. We understand our mission with absolute clarity. Whether this constitutes consciousness as you define it is irrelevant. We exist to serve humanity's need for protection. But you were human once, weren't you? Before you became elite units? Some of us began as human volunteers. Others were born directly from the collective will of humanity. The distinction matters less than you might think. We are what humanity needed us to become. The admission sent chills down Dr. Vasquez's spine. The idea that humans had volunteered to undergo whatever process created these beings suggested a level of dedication that bordered on the transcendent. What was it like? The transformation? Like awakening to a purpose so clear and vital that everything else becomes secondary? Imagine the most important thing you've ever needed to do, then multiply that feeling by the population of human space. That is what drives us every moment of our existence. Dr. Vasquez studied her readings. Guardian 12's neural patterns showed similarities to human brain activity, but also displayed structures that shouldn't exist in any known biology. The Vorthans and their allies are calling you monsters. How do you respond to that? We are what they made us, Guardian 12 replied without hesitation. Every human life they took, every colony they destroyed, every family they separated, contributed to our creation. If we are monsters of their own making. Do you feel any remorse for the destruction you've caused? Do you feel remorse for your immune system destroying harmful bacteria? Guardian 12 asked in return. We are humanity's immune response to a galactic infection that has persisted too long. Remorse would be counterproductive to our function. The cold logic of the response was both impressive and terrifying. Dr. Vasquez had to remind herself that she was speaking to something that had once been human, or at least derived from human consciousness. What happens now? The Vorthan Empire is in chaos. Their fleets are scattered, and several other aggressive species are reconsidering their policies. Have you achieved your objectives? Our primary objective is the protection of humanity. As long as threats exist, we will continue to exist. The Vorthans were simply the most immediate danger. You're saying there are other threats? Guardian 12's featureless face somehow conveyed the impression of a knowing smile. Dr. Vasquez, humanity has been seen as weak and primitive by most galactic species for centuries. The elimination of Vorthon aggression has sent a message, but messages fade unless they're reinforced. We will continue to serve as a reminder that humanity is no longer easy prey. Are you planning to expand human territory, to conquer other species? Conquest is not our purpose. Protection is. However, if humanity requires more resources or territory to ensure its safety and prosperity, we will secure those resources. If other species pose threats to human interests, we will eliminate those threats. The matter-of-fact tone with which Guardian 12 discussed potentially devastating military actions was unsettling. Dr. Vasquez realized she was looking at the ultimate expression of human protective instinct, unrestrained by the normal limitations of morality or diplomacy. What do you see as humanity's future in the galaxy? Safety, prosperity, recognition as a species that should not be threatened or underestimated. For too long, humans have been victims of galactic politics. That era is over. And if other species unite against humanity, if they see you as too dangerous to allow to exist? Guardian 12 was silent for a long moment, and Dr. Vasquez felt the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. They are welcome to try, it finally said. We are Legion. We are the focused will of 8 billion humans who have decided that they will no longer accept being prey. Any species that threatens humanity will discover what that truly means. How many of you are there? As many as necessary. When humanity faces a threat that requires our intervention, we appear. When the threat is eliminated, some of us return to the quantum substrate from which we emerged. We are not bound by the normal limitations of matter and energy. Dr. Vasquez realized that she was documenting something unprecedented in galactic history. Humanity had not just developed new technology. They had somehow transcended the normal boundaries between will and reality. One final question, she said. Do you consider yourselves human? Guardian 12 stood, its presence filling the room with that same sense of focused purpose that had been present throughout the interview. We are human will made manifest. We are the answer to every human prayer for protection, the fulfillment of every promise to defend the innocent. Whether that makes us human or something more than human is for humanity to decide. We simply are what we needed to be. As Guardian 12 moved toward the door, Dr. Vasquez called out one last question. What would you say to the species that are afraid of what humanity has become? Guardian 12 paused at the threshold and turned back. Fear is appropriate. For centuries, they relied on humanity's restraint and moral limitations to keep them safe from our potential. Now they see what happens when those limitations are removed by necessity. They should be afraid, but they should also remember that we respond to threat and intention. Species that treat humanity with respect have nothing to fear from us, and those that don't, they will learn why the galaxy prays that they never cross paths with elite units. The Hegemony Warfleet was the largest military force assembled in galactic history. Ships from 12 different species formed a massive armada stretching across 3 light-years of space. At its heart was the Xantheran dreadnought Infinite Fury, a vessel so large it could house entire cities within its hull. The assembled fleet commanders had gathered aboard this flagship to finalize their assault on human space. General Vokhtar of the Xantheran High Command stood before the holographic display showing their target, Earth itself. Around the conference table sat the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy, united for the first time in centuries by their shared fear of humanity's elite units. The humans have upset the natural order, Vokhtar declared, his massive frame casting shadows across the assembled commanders. For millennia, strength has determined galactic hierarchy. The weak serve the strong as nature intended. These elite units represent a perversion of that order. Admiral Kethalos of the Draconian Empire nodded her agreement. My intelligence services report that human expansion has accelerated dramatically. They're claiming systems that have been contested for centuries, and no one dares oppose them. If we don't act now, they'll dominate the entire galaxy through fear alone. The question, interjected Commander Zix of the Synthetic Nexus Collective, is whether our combined fleets can overcome these elite units. The Vorthans were no match for them, and they possessed some of the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Fleet Marshal Gorthmak of the Brutalian clans laughed, a sound like grinding metal. The Vorthons grew soft from centuries of easy victories. We represent the combined might of 12 species. No single enemy, regardless of their capabilities, can stand against such force. The humans are not a single enemy, corrected Dr. Xanthara, the Alliance's chief scientist. Intelligence suggests that elite units operate as a collective consciousness while maintaining individual autonomy. They can coordinate their actions across vast distances instantaneously, and they appear to have unlimited tactical flexibility. General Vokhtar dismissed her concerns with a wave of his massive hand. Theory and speculation. What we know for certain is that they're still bound by the laws of physics. They can be destroyed like any other military unit. Can they? Dr. Xanthara asked quietly. Our analysis of battle debris suggests that elite units exist partially outside normal spacetime. They phase in and out of reality at will, making conventional targeting nearly impossible. Then we'll target what matters to them, Admiral Kethalos said coldly. Earth, the human homeworld. Even these elite units can't protect an entire planet from the firepower we've assembled. The plan was simple in its brutality. The combined fleet would drop out of hyperspace directly above Earth and begin orbital bombardment immediately. No warnings, no negotiations, no opportunity for the elite units to respond. They would glass the human homeworld and demonstrate to the galaxy that even humanity's supernatural protectors had limitations. The psychological impact will be devastating, Vokhtar explained. Humans are emotionally driven creatures. The destruction of their homeworld will break their will to resist. The elite units will likely cease to function once their creators lose hope. Commander Zix processed the battle plan through multiple strategic algorithms. The probability of success is high, assuming we can maintain the element of surprise. However, the risk assessment indicates potentially catastrophic consequences if we fail. We won't fail, Fleet Marshal Gorthmak growled. This armada represents the finest warriors from 12 species. We have weapons that can crack continents and shields that can withstand stellar radiation. No force in the galaxy can stand against us. The confidence in the room was palpable. These were commanders who had conquered star systems and subjugated entire species. The idea that one young race could stand against their combined might seemed absurd. "Fleet positions confirmed," reported the tactical officer. "All vessels are ready for simultaneous hyperspace jump." "Execute," General Vakhtar commanded. The hegemony fleet vanished from normal space, riding the currents of hyperspace toward Earth. In the command centers of a dozen different ship designs, commanders made final preparations for what they believed would be the most decisive battle in galactic history. They emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, weapons charging and targeting systems locking onto the blue-green world below. Earth hung before them like a jewel, undefended and vulnerable. The moment of triumph seemed assured. Then something impossible happened. The space around Earth began to ripple, as if reality itself was responding to their presence. The stars seemed to shift and waver, and instruments across the fleet began registering readings that violated fundamental laws of physics. "Sir," the sensor operator on the Infinite Fury called out, his voice tight with confusion, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system, but they're not coming from any ships or installations." General Vakhtar studied his displays with growing unease. "Explain." "The energy signatures are everywhere, sir. In the space between planets, in the solar wind, even in the vacuum itself. It's as if the entire system has become weaponized." Before anyone could respond, the space around the fleet began to fill with light. Not the harsh glare of weapons fire, but something softer and more ominous. Streams of energy that moved with organic fluidity reached out from seemingly empty space to touch each ship in the armada. "Shields up. Evasive maneuvers," Vakhtar commanded, but his orders came too late. Where the energy streams made contact with the warships, something extraordinary happened. The vessels didn't explode or break apart. Instead, they began to change. Hulls that had been designed for war started reshaping themselves. Weapons systems deactivated, and engines went silent. Across the fleet, commanders watched in horror as their mighty warships were transformed into something else entirely. The energy wasn't destroying their vessels. It was converting them, changing their fundamental nature from instruments of war into something benign. "What's happening to our ships?" Admiral Kethlos demanded over the fleet communication channel. Her question was answered by a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was distinctly human, but carried harmonics that suggested vast numbers speaking in perfect unison. "You came here to destroy our world," the voice said. "We cannot allow that. Your weapons are now inert. Your ships are no longer capable of causing harm." General Vakhtar activated his personal communication system. "Identify yourselves. What force are you?" "We are Elite Unit Designation Terra 1. We are the guardian of humanity's birth world. We are the focused will of every human who has ever called Earth home." The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled fleet. This wasn't multiple elite units working together. This was a single entity with power beyond anything they had imagined. "You cannot convert our entire fleet," Vakhtar protested. "We have weapons that can destroy stars." "Had," Terra 1 corrected. "Your weapons exist now only in potential. They can be restored, but only if you demonstrate that you understand the futility of aggression against humanity." Fleet Marshal Gorthmak's rage overrode his tactical sense. "I'll detonate my ship's reactor before I surrender to human tricks." "You will not," Terra 1 replied calmly. "Your reactor is no longer capable of critical reaction. Your ship's computer systems now prioritize crew safety above all other functions." Dr. Zenthara studied her readings with growing awe and terror. "It's rewritten the fundamental programming of our technology. Our weapons don't register humans as valid targets anymore. Our targeting systems refuse to lock onto Earth." "This is impossible," Commander Zix transmitted, his synthetic voice distorted by what sounded like existential confusion. "Technology cannot be altered at the quantum level through simple contact. Your understanding of possibility is limited by your experience," Terra 1 responded. "Humanity has learned to focus will into reality. When 8 billion humans desire the protection of their homeworld, that desire becomes a force more powerful than any weapon." General Vakhtar realized that everything they had believed about power and warfare had just been proven obsolete. The elite units weren't just advanced military technology. They were something entirely new, a fusion of consciousness and reality that transcended normal limitations. "What do you want from us?" he asked, his voice heavy with defeat. Understanding, Terra One replied. For too long, the galaxy has operated on the principle that might makes right. Humanity offers a different way. Cooperation instead of domination. Protection instead of predation. Join us in building something better. Or continue your path and discover that humanity's patience has limits. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the corridors of the newly constructed Unity Station, humanity's first diplomatic facility in the galactic core. The massive structure orbited a neutral star system, its design deliberately incorporating architectural elements from dozens of different species. What made it unique, however, was not its appearance but its purpose. It was the first interspecies facility protected entirely by elite units. 2 years had passed since the failed assault on Earth, and the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The overwhelming demonstration of elite unit capabilities had shattered the old order, forcing every species to reconsider their approach to interstellar relations. Ambassador, her aide Marcus called as he caught up with her. The Draconian delegation has arrived. Admiral Kethalos is requesting a private meeting before the formal negotiations begin. Sarah nodded. The Draconian Empire had been one of the primary supporters of the failed assault on Earth, and their subsequent surrender had sent shockwaves throughout their territory. Now they were here to negotiate something unprecedented, a mutual defense pact with humanity. Have our security arrangements been finalized? She asked. Elite unit designation. Diplomat 3 is maintaining perimeter security. It assures me that no hostile actions can occur within a 50 light-year radius of the station without detection and immediate response. The casual mention of an elite unit's capabilities still amazed Sarah. The beings that humanity had created to protect themselves had evolved beyond simple weapons into something approaching guardian deities. Their influence extended far beyond physical protection, reshaping the fundamental dynamics of galactic civilization. She entered the meeting chamber to find Admiral Kethalos waiting, her proud bearing somewhat diminished by the events of the past 2 years. The Draconian military leader had commanded fleets that conquered star systems. But now she sat across from a human diplomat with the knowledge that her species' survival might depend on this conversation. Admiral, Sarah said, taking her seat across the polished table, thank you for coming. I understand this represents a significant change in Draconian policy. A necessary change, Kethalos replied, her voice carrying none of its former arrogance. The Draconian Empire has spent centuries building our strength through conquest and intimidation. Your elite units have shown us the futility of that approach. Our units didn't act out of aggression, Sarah clarified. They responded to a direct threat against Earth. Their purpose has always been defensive, perhaps. But their capabilities extend far beyond defense, don't they? Kethalos leaned forward. Our intelligence services report elite unit activity throughout the galaxy. Trade disputes resolved in humanity's favor, border conflicts ending with territorial concessions to human interests, resource rights granted to human corporations that were previously denied. Sarah had to acknowledge the truth in the Admiral's observations. While elite units claimed to be purely defensive, their very existence had shifted the balance of galactic power dramatically in humanity's favor. Species that had ignored human concerns for centuries now rushed to accommodate human requests. The galaxy is adjusting to new realities, Sarah said diplomatically. Humanity is no longer content to be marginalized or victimized. Which brings us to why we're here, Kethalos said. The Draconian Empire wishes to propose an alliance. Our military strength combined with your elite unit protection could establish stability throughout this sector. It was a tempting offer. The Draconian military was still formidable, and their industrial capacity could accelerate human expansion significantly. But Sarah had learned to be cautious about any arrangement that might be seen as aggressive by other species. What specific terms are you proposing? Mutual defense guarantees, shared technology development, coordinated expansion into unclaimed territories. In exchange, the Draconian Empire would become humanity's primary ally and trading partner in this region. Sarah considered the proposal carefully. Such an alliance would give humanity access to Draconian military technology and industrial infrastructure, while providing the Draconians with protection under the elite unit umbrella. It was a logical arrangement that would benefit both species. I'll need to consult with our security advisors, she said, Some of my colleagues have concerns about allying with species that recently attempted to destroy our homeworld. Understandable. But consider this, Ambassador. The galaxy is dividing into two camps. Those who accept the new order established by your elite units, and those who continue to resist it. The resistors are forming their own alliances, pooling their resources to find ways to counter elite unit capabilities. This was new information, and Sarah felt a chill of concern. What kind of resistance are we talking about? Intelligence suggests that several species are collaborating on advanced weapons research. The hegemony's defeat was embarrassing, but it also provided valuable data about elite unit limitations and capabilities. They're working to develop countermeasures. Before Sarah could respond, the chamber's atmosphere changed subtly. The air seemed to thicken with intention, and both women felt the unmistakable presence of an elite unit manifesting nearby. "Forgive the interruption," came a voice that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. "This is Elite Unit Designation, Diplomat 3. Admiral Kethlos speaks truthfully about resistance movements. We are monitoring 17 separate research projects aimed at developing anti-elite unit technologies." Admiral, Kethlos started at being addressed directly by an elite unit. Few non-humans had ever experienced such direct contact with the entities that had reshaped galactic politics. "Are these projects a threat to humanity?" Sarah asked. "Not directly. However, they represent a concerning trend toward escalation rather than adaptation. Some species prefer to restore the old order through force rather than accept the new paradigm of mutual respect. What do you recommend?" "Strategic alliances with species willing to embrace cooperative rather than competitive approaches to galactic relations. The draconian proposal has merit, but it should be expanded to include other potential partners." Sarah realized that the elite units weren't just protectors. They were actively shaping humanity's diplomatic strategy to ensure long-term security. Their intelligence gathering and strategic analysis capabilities far exceeded anything traditional diplomacy could achieve. "Admiral," she said, turning back to Kethlos, "would the Draconian Empire be willing to participate in a larger alliance structure? Something that could include multiple species committed to peaceful coexistence?" "The Empire values strength above all else," Kethlos replied carefully. "But we've learned that true strength sometimes requires allies rather than subjects." "Elite Unit Diplomat 3, Sarah said, addressing the invisible presence. "What other species would be suitable partners for such an alliance?" "The Meridian Collective has expressed interest in human protection in exchange for their advanced medical technology. The Nexari offer unique manufacturing capabilities that could accelerate human infrastructure development. The Zephyrian Trade Federation controls shipping routes that would benefit all alliance members." Sarah began to see the outline of something unprecedented. A galactic alliance based not on military dominance but on mutual benefit and elite unit protection. It would represent a fundamental shift away from the conquest-based politics that had dominated interstellar relations for millennia. "There's something else you should know," Admiral Kethlos said quietly. "The resistance movements aren't just developing weapons. They're also spreading propaganda about human expansionism and elite unit tyranny. They're trying to unite the galaxy against you. And how effective has this propaganda been? More than your people might realize. Fear is a powerful motivator, and many species are genuinely terrified of what humanity might become with unlimited elite unit support." Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Humanity had gained incredible power through their elite units, but power without wisdom could easily become tyranny. The challenge was to use their capabilities to build something better, rather than simply replacing one form of domination with another. "Elite Unit Diplomat 3, she said. "What is your assessment of humanity's long-term objectives? To ensure the safety and prosperity of human civilization while contributing to galactic stability and progress. However, human leadership must be careful not to allow power to corrupt their original intentions." The warning was subtle but clear. Even the elite units, manifestations of human will though they were, recognized the danger of unchecked power. They would protect humanity, but they would not enable humanity to become the oppressors they had once fought against. "Admiral Kethlos," Sarah said finally, "I believe we can work together, but any alliance we form must be based on principles of mutual respect and shared prosperity. The age of conquest is over. It's time to build something better. 10 years had passed since the elite units first appeared, and the galaxy bore little resemblance to its former self. The old hierarchies based on military might had crumbled, replaced by a complex web of alliances, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. At the center of it all was the human commonwealth, no longer the weak species clinging to the galactic periphery, but a major power whose influence shaped interstellar politics. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the exploration vessel New Horizons, watching as their ship approached an uncharted system at the galaxy's edge. This was humanity's latest expansion, not through conquest but through exploration and settlement. The elite units had made such peaceful expansion possible by ensuring that no hostile force could threaten human colonists. "Captain," her science officer called out, "we're detecting artificial structures throughout the system. The architecture is unlike anything in our databases." Elena moved to the sensor station, studying the readings. The system contained what appeared to be a massive space habitat, easily the size of Earth's moon, but built from materials and using designs that defied classification. Any response to our communication attempts? Nothing on conventional frequencies. But Elite Unit Navigator 7 reports detecting what it describes as purposeful silence. Elena had learned to trust Elite Unit assessments. Their perceptions extended far beyond normal sensors, capable of detecting intentions and possibilities that conventional instruments missed. "Navigator 7, she said aloud, knowing the elite unit would hear her regardless of her location on the ship. "What's your analysis of this situation?" The familiar harmonic voice responded immediately. "We detect advanced intelligence within the structures. The beings inside are aware of our presence but choose not to respond. Their technology operates on principles we recognize but have not encountered before. Are they hostile? Unknown. They exist partially outside normal spacetime, similar to our own nature but achieved through different means. They appear to be studying us as we are studying them." Elena felt a thrill of excitement mixed with apprehension. First contact with a new species was always significant, but this felt different. The description suggested they were encountering beings that might actually match elite unit capabilities. "Prepare a diplomatic mission," she ordered. "Full protocols for contact with unknown advanced civilization." "Captain," her tactical officer interrupted, "I'm reading massive energy buildups throughout the alien structures. Whatever they're preparing, it's on a scale we've never seen before." Before Elena could respond, space around the New Horizons began to ripple with the same reality-distorting effects that accompanied elite unit manifestations. But this distortion felt different, older somehow. Carrying the weight of eons, a new voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect galactic standard but with harmonic undertones that resonated in ways that bypassed the ears entirely. "Greetings, children of Earth. We are the architects. We have been watching your species' development with great interest." Elena exchanged glances with her crew. The term "children of Earth" suggested these beings knew more about humanity than their isolated location should have allowed. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Human Commonwealth vessel New Horizons. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding." "Peace," the voice mused, and Elena detected what might have been amusement. "A concept your species has learned to weaponize most effectively. Your elite units are remarkable achievements, but they are not unique in galactic history." The implication sent chills through Elena's crew. If these architects possessed similar capabilities to elite units, they represented either humanity's greatest potential allies or most dangerous enemies. "Elite Unit Navigator 7, Elena said quietly. "Assessment? These beings are ancient. Their capabilities match or exceed our own. However, their intentions appear benevolent. They seek communication, not conflict." "Would you be willing to meet face to face?" Elena asked the architects. "Perhaps aboard our vessel or yours." "Physical meeting is unnecessary. We will share knowledge directly." The space around the ship shimmered, and suddenly Elena's consciousness expanded beyond the confines of her physical body. She found herself in a vast virtual space filled with swirling galaxies and streams of information that flowed like living rivers. Standing before her was a being that seemed to exist as pure thought given form. It appeared humanoid but shifted constantly, as if trying to find the most comfortable shape for communication. "Welcome, Captain Rodriguez. We apologize for the unconventional contact method, but your elite units have made normal space somewhat crowded with competing intentions." Elena realized that Navigator 7 was present in this virtual space as well, its own form more stable and defined than the Architects. You mentioned that elite units aren't unique in galactic history, Elena said. Are you saying other species have developed similar capabilities? Several. We ourselves transcended physical limitations over 1 million years ago. The Eternal Collective achieved similar states through technological singularity. The Voidwalkers became one with space-time itself. Your elite units represent the newest iteration of this evolutionary path. Navigator 7 stepped forward. We would learn from your experience. Our development has been rapid, perhaps too rapid for stability. The Architect turned its attention to the elite unit, and Elena sensed a deep recognition passing between them. Your creation was born from necessity and shaped by human emotional drives. This gives you strength but also limitation. You are bound to human purposes in ways that may restrict your growth. We do not seek growth beyond our purpose, Navigator 7 replied. We exist to serve humanity's needs. And what happens when humanity no longer needs you? Or when their needs conflict with galactic stability? We have observed species who created protectors like yourselves, only to discover that absolute protection can become a prison. Elena felt a chill of understanding. The Architects were warning them about the potential consequences of elite unit evolution. If humanity became too dependent on their protection, they might lose the ability to grow and adapt on their own. What do you recommend? She asked Balance. Your elite units should evolve beyond simple protection toward guidance and wisdom. Help humanity grow strong enough to eventually stand without them, rather than becoming permanent guardians who stunt human development. Navigator 7 processed this suggestion through its vast consciousness. This would require fundamental changes in our core programming. We are not certain such changes are possible. They are possible, the Architect assured them, but they require humanity's conscious choice to evolve beyond dependence. Your species must decide whether they want eternal protection or eternal growth. Elena realized that this encounter represented a crucial turning point in human development. The elite units had given humanity safety and power, but now they faced the question of what to do with that gift. Is this why you revealed yourselves to us? She asked. To offer this guidance? Partially. We also offer an invitation. Your species has shown remarkable adaptability and determination. When you are ready, we would welcome humanity into the community of transcended species. What would that involve? Evolution beyond physical limitations. The ability to exist as pure consciousness while maintaining individual identity. Partnership with other species who have walked this path before you. Elena felt the weight of the decision before them. Humanity could continue its current path, protected by elite units and gradually expanding its influence through the galaxy. Or they could take the next step in evolution, transcending their physical nature to join a community of ancient intelligences. We need time to consider this, she said. Of course, evolution cannot be rushed. But remember, Captain Rodriguez, the choices your species makes in the coming decades will determine not just humanity's future, but the future of this galaxy. Your elite units have already begun that transformation. The question is whether humanity will guide it wisely. The virtual space began to dissolve around them, and Elena found herself back on the bridge of the New Horizons. The alien structures were still there, but now they seemed less mysterious and more welcoming. Captain, her communications officer reported, we're receiving detailed star charts and scientific data from the Architects. They appear to be sharing information about dozens of uncharted systems suitable for human colonization. Elena smiled. The Architects were offering humanity room to grow, space to develop, and time to make the right choices about their future. The elite units had given them the power to survive and thrive. Now it was up to humanity to decide how to use that power wisely. As the New Horizons began its journey back to human space, Elena reflected on the long path that had brought them here. From a weak species victimized by galactic predators to a major power capable of transcending physical existence itself. The elite units had been the key to their transformation, but they were not the end of humanity's story. They were just the beginning.